Hey guys, welcome to Praxis Level 3 practice test for Praxis Elementary Education exam. So in this one, we have 20 questions, and like our other practice tests, all of the questions and the answer choices are in the description. And so first thing to do really is go into that description and answer all the questions, and then come back here and watch the video, get all the answers, as well as a reasoning for the answers and the important concepts that you really need to get into your mind before you go and take the test. So having said that, well, one other thing, mobile app will be coming in early February of 2021. Thousands of practice questions with detailed feedback. It's kind of like fun and interactive, and it will customize to you. Study anytime, anywhere. It's a good thing. Free install. Recommend checking it out. Best way to know when it's coming out: subscribe to the channel. We'll have updates coming like as the app is released, both on iOS and Android. Okay, so let's get going here. So this first question is actually one of the toughest ones. A lot of people struggle with this. A, B, and C are all positive numbers. And it says A equals 1/2 B, 3C equals 2B. Solve for C in terms of A. Okay, so we see this phrase, solve for C in terms of A, right? You can see here, like all of them have like C equals some fraction or number A. Okay, so that's all that really means. So as we look at these two, right, we already know we have 3C equals 2B. And we're solving for C in terms of A. So we need somehow to get it to say C equals A. Right? And so the way that we want to do that is we want this one where it says A equals 1/2 B. We want to get some number in front of A to equal 2B. Okay, and then we can substitute it for 3C. So we'll show you how we do that. So first we want to get it to be 2B, so we have both of these equaling 2B. So if A equals 1/2 B, if I multiply both sides by 4, right? 4 times 1/2 is 2. Okay, so now I'm going to have 2B over here, and 4 times A is 4A. Okay, so I have 4A equals 2B, and from the question we know that 3C equals 2B, right? So I know that 4A is 2B, 3C is 2B. So could I also then say that 3C equals 4A? Because I'm trying to solve for C in terms of A, right? I want to have, like as we look at our answer choices again over there, I want to have it to say C equals something A, right? And so all we've done here is that if 3C equals 2B and 4A is this, then these two have to be equal, right? And that's all I did down here. So I just said that they're equal. 3C equals 4A, okay? Because they both equal 2B, so they have to be equal. Okay, so then just to solve, all you gotta do is get rid of the 3, right? And that's gonna be our answer. C equals 4/3 A, and that is answer choice A. Okay, so that one, those take they take some practice. So below all of the questions in the description are videos that connect to each of these questions, right? I might take a look at a couple more of those, right? So I take a look at the video that goes over this kind of stuff. And getting practice doing it once the app is out is also really valuable, right? Just getting practice at working through this stuff. If you make a mistake, the app's going to be able to help you figure out where your mistake was, and that's really valuable too. All right, moving on. Question 2, negative exponents. Okay, so people get thrown on this one as well. Okay, so when we have negative exponents, we just make it a fraction where the numerator is 1 and the denominator is the base with a positive exponent. Okay, so what in the world does that mean? Okay, So when we see 2 to the negative 3, so we start just 1 in the numerator over 2 to the third, right? So the base stayed the same. The base is 2, and I just put it where we took away the negative exponent, and that's just the rule of how you do this. Okay, so 2 to the third is 2 times 2 times 2. That's 8. 1 at top. So 2 to the negative 3 equals 1/8. Okay, and then we have 4 to the negative 2, right? So again, we put 1 in the numerator over just 4 squared. Okay, and 4 squared is 4 times 4, so that's 16 over 1. Right, so now they asked us to add these, right? So now they're just asking us to add 1/8 plus 1/16, right? And so we need to get the denominators the same, just like basic adding fractions, right? So 1/8 is the same as 2/16, so we just have 2/16, 1/16, right? Denominator stays the same. 2 plus 1 is 3. We end up with 3/16. So similar concept. If you need to see more examples of how this is done, right? So you have that sort of the concept locked in your mind. We got videos for that, again, at the bottom of the description. And repeating myself from question 1 with some of these harder math questions, really getting practice at answering questions, getting feedback about how to go about solving them. That's what the app's for. Okay, and then we have these like sequences and patterns. Okay, so this is a common one, and what we're seeing here is we're just adding the 2 previous numbers together, right? And so there's a few types of patterns that are the most common that show up, and so this is one of them. And so in your mind, you just know the most common patterns, and you see like, well, is it this one or is it that one? Okay, so 1 plus 2 is 3, right? 1 plus 2 is 3, right? And there's our first numbers. And then we take 3 plus 2, right? So we have a 2 and a 3. We add them together, we get 5. Yeah, right there. 5 plus 3, right here. 5 plus 3 is 8. Okay, keeps happening. So then we just take the last 2 terms, 8 and 5, add them together. 8 plus 5 is 13. There we go. Okay, Pemdas maybe takes you back to high school or maybe even middle school. Doing this stuff, right? And so the phrase is, or the mnemonic is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? Maybe you can remember hearing that one somewhere in your distant past. But really what we want to know for PEMDAS is that it is the order in which we solve these things. And so that means parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. We don't want to just go left to right with this guy. Okay, so let's do this. So first thing was parentheses, right? So in that parentheses, we can see 5 plus 7. And 5 plus 7 is 12. And then just carry the rest of the stuff out. Okay, and so the parentheses are done. And then the next thing we would do is exponents, right? So we just carry that 4 down there. 12 squared is 12 times 12. 12 times 12 is 144. Minus another exponent, 8 squared. And 8 squared is 64. Okay, so we've done parentheses, we've done exponents. Next is multiply. And so 4 times 144 is 576 minus 64. And if we subtract that out, we get 512. Okay, and that is answer choice C. All right, so that's how we do that one, right? PEMDAS, an important one to remember. That will be a question that will show up for sure. Just PEMDAS and order of operations. Okay, what percentage of 80 is 50? So sometimes just getting used to this wording. So you'll see this type of wording in a question. It's just familiarizing yourself with what is it that they're actually asking you. What percentage of 80, so 80 is the denominator, is 50. 50 is the numerator. And so once you know how to read it and write it down like that, rest is pretty simple. 50 divided by 80 is 0.625 or 62.5%. Okay, there goes the math section. And on to social studies. Okay, so which of the following involved a series of events that led to removing Native Americans from their homes in the 19th century? Okay, so you need to be familiar with all four of these events, really. But this one is the Trail of Tears. Okay, so we'll go ahead and circle that answer and then talk about it for a sec. So the Trail of Tears, that's a series of forced relocations of Indian nations following the Indian Removal Act of 1830. The Battle of Tippecanoe was fought in 1811 and involved U.S. expansion, but it was a one-day battle. Sand Creek Massacre occurred during the American Indian Wars in 1864 and led to the death of over 150 Native Americans in the Colorado Territory. Okay, so those are just the basics. Like with the years, like rarely will you be tested on anything about years, right? It's much more about what the events were. Okay, the Plymouth settlement differed from the Jamestown settlement in what way? Okay, and so like the basic thing that you want to have in your mind here is that the people of Plymouth, they came there due to religious persecution, and they were looking for a place where they could worship. While Jamestown was much more focused on entrepreneurship and had an entrepreneurial spirit. Okay, so based on all that, we know that many of the settlers of Plymouth came there due to religious persecution, and answer choice A is the one we like. So believe it or not, this is a social studies question, right? But it seems like a science question. But according to the Praxis, it's a social studies question. Increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, are an indication of global warming. So we would like to know some basics about each of these, right? Because you could easily be tested on any of these answer choices. Global warming and climate change, these are terms for the observed century scale rise in the average temperature of the Earth's climate system and its related effects. Global warming is mostly being caused by human activities, mainly increasing concentration of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. Which of the following was not one of the goals of the Marshall Plan? Okay, so the Marshall Plan was an American initiative to aid Western Europe, in which the U.S. gave over $12 billion. The goal of the U.S. was to rebuild war-devastated regions, remove trade barriers, modernize industry, make Europe prosperous again, and prevent the spread of communism. Improving relations with Russia was not one of the goals of the Marshall Plan, so answer choice C is the one that does not fit. That is not correct. Question 10. Which period is regarded as the cultural bridge between the Middle Ages and modern history? We definitely want to know this. Is the Renaissance. If you're not familiar with the Renaissance, it started as a cultural movement in Italy in the late medieval period and later spread to the rest of Europe. The intellectual basis of the Renaissance was a new version of humanism, which was based on the rediscovery of classical Greek philosophy. The new thinking became manifest in art, architecture, politics, science, and literature. Okay, so those are some details, but really, cultural bridge between Middle Ages and modern history, That's really the typical way that question is asked, and if you know of it as being a bridge between those two periods, you're good to go. Okay, and then we're jumping to science. Fossils are found in what type of rock? That would be sedimentary. The reason is that these rocks form at low temperatures and pressures. On the other hand, igneous rocks form at temperatures and pressures that are high enough to destroy any organic remains. On rare occasions, fossils are found in metamorphic rocks, but they are deformed by heat and pressure. Okay. If an increase in river temperature affects a salmon population, which of the following is true? So what we want to know here is river temperature is an abiotic factor, which means it's a non-living component of an ecosystem, while salmon population is a biotic factor, which means it's a living component of an ecosystem, which means that answer choice B, an abiotic factor is affecting a biotic factor, would be correct. San Andreas Fault is a transform plate zone. Okay, so let's go over some of these plate zones. So a transform plate zone, that is a slip sliding plate, and the San Andreas Fault, where the North America and Pacific plates grind past each other with a mostly horizontal motion, is an example there of a transform plate. Divergent plates are two plates that are spreading apart, as at seafloor spreading ridges or continental rift zones, such as the East Africa Rift. Convergent plate movement is when two tectonic plates meet and one slides beneath the other back into the mantle, the layer underneath the crust. Convergent plates can also be referred to as subduction zones. Okay, the outermost layer of Earth's atmosphere. So the layers, so we talk about this for a second. Outermost layer, we are looking for exosphere. Right? This is a pretty common question. So when we say it's the outermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, that means it's the upper limit of the atmosphere. The exosphere is located too far above Earth for any meteorological phenomena to be possible. And question 15. Which of the following planets are the ice planets of the solar system? And that would be Uranus and Neptune. Answer choice D. An ice giant is a giant planet composed mainly of elements heavier than hydrogen and helium, such as oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, and sulfur. So the two known ice giants in the solar system that have these qualities are Uranus and Neptune. I don't know why I picked Uranus and Jupiter. Bad instructor. Uranus and Neptune was what I meant to circle. Organisms in the same biological class are called phylum. Phylum is a way to classify animals and plants. Phylum comes above class and below kingdom in the biological classification system. The hierarchical order of the answer choices is phylum, family, genus, species. Genus is a major subdivision of a family or subfamily in the classification of organisms, usually consisting of more than one species. And then we jump to language arts here for the final 4 questions. Okay, incorrect subject-verb agreement. Okay, so what we need to know here, so we have each, everyone, neither. Okay, so with each, everyone, and as well everybody, they are singular and therefore require singular verbs. So is would be a singular verb, but are would not. So when you see each of you are responsible, each of you is responsible. So each and is have the correct subject verb agreement. Each and are do not have the correct subject verb agreement, and therefore answer choice A is incorrect. The ocean danced in the moonlight. What is this an example of? Okay, and this is personification, so we'll talk about this for a sec. Okay, so personification, that's when you assign the qualities of a person to something that isn't human. So dancing is something that humans do, and an ocean, obviously, is not human. Simile compares two things that are alike in some way. So an example would be as blind as a bat. A metaphor refers to one thing by mentioning another. An example of a metaphor could be feeling blue. Okay, either be on time or pay the consequences. What is the word or? Okay, so we've got or. So I don't know if you guys know the mnemonic fanboys. If not, you're about to. So coordinating conjunctions, which that's what this is. Go ahead and circle that when we talk about this. Coordinating conjunctions coordinate or join two or more sentences, main clauses, or words. So fanboys is used so we can help to memorize the most common coordinating conjunctions. So fanboys is for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. That's what it stands for. So again, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So those are the ones to remember. Those are the ones that will show up almost certainly. Right? So if you get any of those 7 words, then you think coordinating conjunction. If you can remember fanboys and what each of those letters stands for, then you're really good to go on anything that's coordinating conjunction. Very common question. I would not be surprised at all that you saw it. It is worth memorizing. Whoa, unhighlight. Okay, and so with this last question, so again, anytime we see a paragraph, we're looking for what are they asking us, right? So this down here at the bottom says this passage would be taken from what type of essay? So they're asking us for a type of essay. Like, are we comparing and contrasting? So kind of like equal weighting of two different things. Is it just classification? Is it cause and effect? Or is it persuasive? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. Globalization is producing many negative externalities. Global commerce is increasingly dominated by international corporations who seek to maximize profits with little to no regard for the developmental needs of individual countries. Protectionistic policies in industrialized countries prevent many third world country producers from accessing export markets. Competition among developing nations leads to a race to the bottom in which environmental standards are compromised. Okay, so the passage is talking about the negative impacts, which are effects being caused by globalization. Compare and contrast would be applicable if the author chose to compare the positive and negative effects. Classification would be breaking groups into smaller categories. A persuasive essay is one in which the author tries to convince the audience of something. Cause and effect and persuasive can be very similar. So this passage is pretty close to being persuasive, but we need more facts, specific examples, and statistics to break up the opinion that globalization is negative. So that's kind of when you're looking at, so I mean the answer here is cause and effect. And so when you're looking at cause and effect and persuasive, that's really what you're looking for, right? With persuasive is you're looking for data, right? And if you see so if you're not sure, like you're looking at it like, man, I don't know, they seem really similar, right? Is if you see a bunch of data, numbers, percentages, anything like that, then it's much more likely that it's persuasive. If you don't see that and it seems more opinion and just saying that, this thing is being caused by this, but without data to back it up, it's much more likely to be cause and effect. Additionally, cause and effect does tend to be a little more past oriented. Persuasive arguments tend to be more like present or what's about to happen in the future. So, having said all of that, we are at the end of the level 3 practice test. If anything didn't make sense or needs further explanation, please let us know in the comments. We will get back to you as soon as possible. And don't forget to subscribe so that you are ready for the mobile app when it comes out in early February.